Instantly just dropped their starter kit, which now means you can quickly build your own custom version of Instantly. And if you're not a full-time developer, this one is especially for you. A lot of companies and agencies love Instantly for all the hard email stuff. We're talking sending, deliverability, inbox, analytics, but they also may want their own thing on top. We're talking white label, their own custom dashboard for clients, their own pipeline, their own product that still runs on Instantly underneath. That custom layer is what people call a wrapper. Think of it like your storefront sitting on top of Instantly's engine room. It used to take about a week of reading API docs and connecting everything by hand or vibing your way through. This kit is built for boilerplate code to get you there in a single afternoon. Starter projects you can copy, a clear instruction sheet for AI tools like Claude, Cursor, Codex, or Grok, and pre-built connectors so you're not inventing every wire yourself. In this video, I will show you what that looks like for everything for real. We will open up a kit, spin up a project, and build a simple client dashboard on top of Instantly. Before we get to click anything, I want to translate a few words so nobody gets lost. First, Instantly. You already know it as a place that you run cold email. Under the hood, Instantly also has a doorway other software can use. People call that doorway an API. Think of it like a receptionist window. You do not talk to the whole building. You ask for the thing that you need through the window. Second, a wrapper. This is just your own tool sitting on top of Instantly. An example is you can keep Instantly for sending and deliverability. You build a small dashboard that only your clients see, a system that verifies leads, then starts a campaign, or a bot that routes replies into Slack. Instantly is still in the engine room. Your wrapper is the storefront. Third, we have an SDK. That stands for Software Development Kit, but you can forget the acronym for a second. Think of it like a box of pre-labeled connectors. Instead of hand building every wire into Instantly, you get a ready-made piece that already speaks the Instantly language. The starter kit ships those connectors in two forms. We have JavaScript and Python. Those are just two common languages people build software in. If that is not your world, that's cool. Your AI coding tool can drive with a lot of this for you. Fourth, a coding agent. This is an AI agent that lives next to your code. We have Claude Code, Cursor, tools like that. You describe what you want in plain English, where it helps you write and build the code. It's not magic, it's just a lot faster when the instruction manuals already lives in the project, which is what Instantly put in this kit. You get the connector kits, you get starter projects for the jobs people actually need, and you get a file called Agents.md. This is basically a cheat sheet that AI reads first, so it builds the Instantly way and does not invent random endpoints. And you get one command that spins up a ready project folder instead of starting from nothing. All right, so first and foremost, the link will be in the description, but you essentially go to the GitHub repository, which is under Instantly AI, and then you're going to want to go to Instantly Starter Kit. Just a little bit of 101 on GitHub. If you're not familiar with GitHub, there are really two things here. There's forking and cloning. You can see right here, we have fork. When you fork something, you're actually taking a copy of it and you are actually putting that on your own GitHub account essentially. So therefore you can effectively own and modify that code base, and then your fork can actually be attached to what you call upstream repository. So if I were to fork this over to my GitHub account, I would actually be synced where I would be downstream. And then if I wanted to sync with the upstream repository where I can get updates, things like that, I would be able to do that. Otherwise, I have full control. This is considered open source. So that means the code base is right here. That's how actually GitHub works. The second one is cloning, and it's really kind of sort of the same, but what we're doing is we're taking a copy of that code base and effectively putting it on our computer versus the actual cloud, which you can see the code base is on GitHub. The first thing that you'll always want to do when you go to any repository is to check out the Readme. The Readme usually is the first single source of truth, tells you about everything, how to set it up, what are the features, things like that. You want to take the Readme with a grain of salt, especially with vibe coding, things like that. It could either be one of three things really. It could be too short and not enough information, or it could be too much information. You're like, dude, this guy vibe coded it for real or something like that. Or third, it can actually be pretty accurate in hopes that, you know, it's actually a good Readme file. So when you actually import any project, it's worth first looking at the Readme file and then validate and verify like what is actually in the code base is actually usable. Anything that is not usable or not accurate, you want your AI agent to clarify, because nowadays you just never know, right? But with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at this Instantly Starter Kit. So you can see right here, we have build wrapper services on top of Instantly API. The API again is kind of like your freeways and your roads. API is none other than exchange exchanging data from one place to another. So if you were to hop in your car and go to work or go get yourself a coffee or something like that, you are the API where you're transporting yourself from one place to another, right? So it's literally like the internet freeway, if you will, is where data actually communicates. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to be standing up our own wrapper utilizing the API of Instantly, so we can use Instantly under the hood as effectively the engine. SDK stands for Software Development Kit, in which there are 2 languages such as JavaScript and Python, but you really don't need to know a whole lot, because if you don't code, that's totally cool. Let your agent handle the big lift. And so what this will do is basically scaffold it and set it up all for you in a single afternoon. So companies build productized outreach services on top of Instantly, using it for email, deliverability, inbox, analytics, the whole gamut, you know, all that kind of stuff. And if you notice, like if you run an agency like myself, sometimes you'll want to build like a really nice wrapper where you're, instead of saying, hey, go to Instantly and check it out for yourself, you may actually want that more white glove premium service where it's like, no, like this is actually rebranded and it just has that nice polished feel. Or you actually might be productizing things a little bit differently where you are building like your own premium white label sequencer and you want to make full use of it and effectively build like a full sequencer on top of Instantly, where Instantly is really the engine. You can actually do that because the API has a whole lot of endpoints for you to be able to do a whole lot of that stuff. Obviously your experience and your preference may differ, but that's how that works. So we have the content. So basically, as I said before, clone, okay, we have cloning and forking, but one of the first things you want to do is point your agent to Agents.md. This is the universal markdown file for basically telling the agent like, hey, this is what you do. This is the instructions on how to do it. It basically gives the whole context from start to finish. So you don't really need to look at a whole lot of this stuff, but these are effectively the terminal commands to actually get things started right here. And then we have build with AI. This kit is written for coding agents. Scaffold a project, open it in Claude Code, Cursor, all that kind of stuff. You can actually copy this and really just in one prompt, just say that. Read Agents.md in this project, then be my Instantly build guide. Start by asking me what I'm trying to build. And I kind of like this because what you're actually doing is instead of saying, I want to build this with your direction in mind, which could be good, you could actually just say like, hey, look at what I have here and then ask me the questions of what I actually want, because you just never know, right? There might be a whole lot of opportunity that you can actually leverage, and maybe you have a better product than what you originally thought. So we have Agents.md, and then this will basically, give all the rest of the files here. Utilizing the SDK, this is where the agent really does a whole lot of the lifting to understand how the API works, what are the different endpoints in the API that it needs to send, what constitutes error handling, so that way it actually works the whole time. Because as much and as fast as you can build things, you want it to be reliable too, right? So error handling is also the biggest thing here. And without vibe coding your way to figuring things out and constantly going against the errors and stuff like that, this really helps kind of narrow it into a very focused build out, and that way it's a lot more accurate. So we have conventions, don't need to worry about that too much, but it basically talks about a lot of the handling when it comes to authentication, creating campaigns, like you just don't pull the trigger without verifying it first. We have async operations, which basically means like if you were to get a reply, you're doing like a poll, that kind of thing. Paginations, these are all kind of the nuanced details from there. And then we have the API reference. So these are the different sections, right? So we have campaigns, leads, enrichment, verification, the capabilities of you're probably underusing. Most of the wrapper service needs already a part of what you run it instantly. The API just lets you automate it. 2 honest buckets. Definitely encourage you to read more of this, but you can see right here, these are the effective templates that you can actually set up that just pull the trigger and go. So if you want outreach service, which does all this stuff, bring your own audience, all that kind of thing. We have reply automation, analytics service, which this could be good for reporting. We have lead pipeline, which this is a really good one to where you can actually help with your outbound sequencing, right? And then you have outbound ops. And then of course you have minimal, which is really kind of just a basic 101. So from here, you'll, the scaffolder, then you have docs and LLMs.txt. LLMs.txt is one of the more common actual text files that you'll see across the internet, where if it's scrapable, the agents can actually understand a lot better, which you can see right here. It's a curated link where agents can really understand a whole lot of things. There's also docs.index.html, which this pulls up in actual HTML, but really it's just a nice curated styled offline site where we can actually populate that and actually look at it even more. And we can actually populate this too as well. So docs.html, how the SDKs are built. This is again just a little bit more details, and then this is obviously the layout as well. So that's really to the extent of really what you want to do, but you did notice it does say to go to agents.md. So let's just take a look at it right here. So you can see right here, this is actually what your agent's going to understand. So this is Markdown. It's very easy for agents to tokenize and understand what is priority. It also is nice and clean and easy for humans to read. You are a coding agent helping a developer build a wrapper service on top of Instantly. This file is your always on map, what the kit is, which API group does what, the rules matter, and the flow to follow. You route through this, and literally it goes end to end on exactly what it is. And that's why you kind of want to throw it at the agent and be like, hey, you're the guide, you tell me what to build, right? Or you ask me what I want, essentially. And this is literally all of the docs, okay? And if we were to go to Readme, this is more details on what the agent would actually create, but you don't need to really look through every single thing. It is worthwhile to know if you want to inspect or just be a little bit more curious to actually learn good prompting or what the agent actually needs to know in order to really get this done right the first time. That is basically what you're going to want to do. So how do we actually get this damn thing started? Well, you can go to fork and you can actually fork it to your repository if you wanted to enhance it. That is optional, but what you actually just want to do very simply is just click on this. And if we were to go to Cursor or Claude Code, doesn't matter. And if I were to say clone repo and I pasted this, I can go ahead and it'll select, basically something I can clone, which you can see right here, Instantly Starter Kit. I've already cloned it. So it's basically right there. And then I went ahead and to save time, actually already created one. So with that said, I created one called Instantly Client Pulse, which is an arbitrary anonymous client. And you can see right here, I actually have Cursor with Grok agent in a terminal to my right here. We have the sidebar and we have Claude Code, you have Cursor, all that kind of stuff. It really doesn't matter which harness you use in terms of Codex, Claude Code, all of them are very capable. Biggest thing again is I provided context around that exact prompt that I talked about right here, which you can just say read Agents.md in this and you literally copy this and then say, hey, this is what I want to build. And then what it'll do, it'll actually just build out this full thing right here, which you can see we have different tabs. We have campaigns, morning brief. So if I were to click on campaigns, we can see all the campaigns there. We have morning brief, which this is just kind of a snapshot of where a client can literally see and go from there. We have the senders in terms of health, okay, and knowing what sending accounts we have. We have the Pulse dashboard, which is a white label KPI board for clients. Instantly is the engine, you own the UI. And you can completely customize how this actually looks. You can put your logo, all that kind of stuff. You have the morning outbound brief, which you can totally customize and mold the data how you want. We have a campaign board, which I show right here. We have a sender health, and then verify and draft launch. That's one thing. So you can actually have it where it goes to the client and be like, hey, this is what we're looking at. Are you ready to pull the trigger? And then you can literally make a button to actually launch it because that fires off the launch to the Instantly API. Then we have reply router where you can do a little bit more with that when it comes to catching the actual reply, classify intent, and then send it to your Slack or your CRM, things like that. And then for generating leads, so you can utilize super search and CRM pipe so you can get that flywheel turning even more in terms of getting more leads. And then anything custom. So you can let your creativity fly, especially with the endpoints that Instantly has. It's almost 170 endpoints and growing from there. So the API in terms of actually logging in to Instantly versus actually what's available on the API, you really have full reign and creativity over creating something that is truly like white label, where instead of Instantly being the sequencer, it would still be the sequencer, but you're actually building on top of it. And that is where this is super powerful, especially doing more premium white label type of stuff where your clients actually appreciate things that because you're tailoring their needs to make sure that they don't have to always log into a centric place all the time. So that is the biggest thing here is, scaffolding it and deploying it. You can see all the code right here. And then one last final tip here is where do you host this? You'll see right here, this says localhost port 3456. So a lot of times you'll have any sort of port, usually it'll be like 3000, 3001, really doesn't matter. The goal here though, obviously this is on my computer. So anything localhost, this code is actually right here. And what this is a rendered page to display what is actually my computer. If I were to send this to my client, they would not be able to see it because it's living on my computer. So how do you actually push this to the internet? Well, that's a good question. What you want to do is find a hosting provider such as Vercel or Netlify, things like that. And then what you'll do is just tell the agent like, hey, how do I get this to the internet? And then what you'll do is you'll get a custom URL. That URL could be like your project.vercel.com or something like that. And that's where we kind of go in beyond the scope of this actual video, but that's where you can really tie in to your actual personal or your agency URL, such as for us, topoffunnel.com. This could be pulse.topoffunnel.com or something like that, where your client is like, oh, like I got my own URL, right? So you can literally take it to the moon when it comes to the URL all the way down to customization. And again, building on top of Instantly's API using the starter kit. So that is the Instantly starter kit, a workshop for building your own tool on top of Instantly. Starter projects, pre-built connectors, and a cheat sheet so your AI helper already knows the rules. A week of work compressed into a single afternoon. If you want the other half of this stack, the piece that drives Instantly from your terminal like a remote control for the platform, click this video here on the official Instantly CLI. That video is the remote. This one is the workshop. Together, that is how you build and run on Instantly without living inside the dashboard at all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there.